Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Jeep because they have hit rock bottom. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Well, I guess that things have to get a little bit worse for Jeep before they get better, but I really do think that we might be at rock bottom for Jeep as a brand when it comes to sales figures and market share with the current situation that is happening. So let's first dive off into some stats. So the first stat comes from Cox Automotive. They state that Jeep's days supply number as a manufacturer here in the US market stands at about 155 days. What this means is that it would take Jeep at current inventory levels and current sales pace about 155 days to sell out of all of their cars. The industry average right now is closer to the mid 50-day range. So this means that Jeep is almost 3x the industry average when it comes to day supply. That is not a good sign. And on top of that, if we dive into sales figures, this comes from goodcarbadcar.net. Some of you may or may not agree with these figures, but anyways, what this shows is that during most of the 2010s, Jeep was doing really well, and towards the end of the decade, they were doing like amazingly well. So at the beginning of the decade, they were, selling right around 300,000 cars per year. But then as the decade went on, towards the middle of the decade, they jumped up to about 500,000 cars per year. And then towards the end, they were selling close to 1 million units per year. I mean, for example, in 2018, Jeep sold 973,000 cars that year. And well, they are obviously off from the top at this point. So 2020 saw 795,000 cars, then 2021, 768, 2022, 684. And so far in 2023, we're like halfway through the year, Jeep has sold 153,000 vehicles. Now, their market share went from about 3% just before the 2010s, and it jumped up to well over 5%, and it actually stood there throughout most of the pandemic because obviously the entire new car market shrunk. But right now, their market share has dropped back down to 3%. So not only are they seeing record low numbers in terms of sales volume, they're also seeing a record low number in terms of US market share. So over the course of several videos, I have detailed why I think this whole Jeep situation is unfolding. I mean, first off, Jeep does not have the best reputation when it comes to reliability in today's market. I mean, several third-party companies rate Jeep as like the most unreliable brand or one of the most unreliable brands in the new car market right now. On top of, reputational issues when it comes to reliability, a lot of the segments that Jeep sells within have had massive pullback by buyers. Talk about that in just a moment. And then the last reason just comes down to the price increases. And it looks like Stellantis and Jeep kind of understand the whole price increase situation because they have stated that there are going to be no more price increases. They're basically going to release a bunch of new product and they're not going to increase prices on the product. And well, moving forward, here's the deal. First off, on the reliability side of things, I do think that that is going to improve as time goes on. And I know that some of you might think that I have rose-tinted glasses on because I'm saying that, but here's why. So first off, that Hurricane powertrain that is currently in the Grand Wagoneer and the Wagoneer is most likely going to make its way into other Jeep product. And so far, that engine looks like it's faring pretty well. Again, we need to have more long-term testing to see exactly how reliable that engine is, but that gives me hope. And then the other engines that Jeep is using across the lineup, the 3.6-liter V6, that's actually really reliable, and then the 2.0 turbo, well, those are engines that are used in a lot of other vehicles, and so over time, they'll refine the engines and, basically make them more reliable. But that's only part of the reliability cake. The other part is all the electronics that Jeep is shoving into the vehicles. And this is another thing where I think as time goes on, Jeep will, and Stellantis in general, will kind of learn more about these technologies and learn more about how to make these technologies reliable. A really good example is Land Rover, right? Land Rover released air suspension decades ago, and they've been working on the technology for decades at this point. And so the air suspension in modern Land Rovers, although not necessarily the most reliable system on the planet, is far more reliable than the systems that they had in cars, 20 years ago, for example. And so I think as time goes on, Jeep will figure things out with this new technology to hopefully make it more reliable. Again, we'll have to see. I guess I will say that I am suspiciously optimistic on the situation. Like, I'm always going to, read into the details, but, I always have that, optimism where I'm like, yeah, maybe things will get better. When it comes to the market side of things, this is where Jeep doesn't have any control. You see, a lot of the segments that Jeep sells within are segments that are typically purchased by, your average American that might make just slightly above average income. And, people that make average income or slightly above average income have been completely wiped out by the pandemic and, by the last 6 to 12 months. Like, it is not a good situation for the average person here in the US. And so Jeep's core buyer base can't afford to buy a vehicle, period, right? And then you tack that onto the fact that Jeep has increased their prices a massive amount, and it makes sense as to why their sales are so down. It's like the people that would normally buy the product, again, they've been completely wiped out, so they can't buy the product. And even if they wanted to buy the product, the prices have increased so much that it's mega out of touch. And so this is just my personal opinion, but I think that if Jeep wants to remedy this situation quickly, they need to implement more than just price freezes. I think that they need to release some really big discounts, right? And I know that there are some discounts, like Jeep dealers, for example, are pretty much just gutting every single vehicle. Like, if you go into a Jeep dealership and you want to buy a vehicle, they will give you the biggest discount ever. But I think it needs to go more so than that. I think there need to be some really heavy rebates to just get rid of the current inventory that dealers have, right? 155-day supply, that is way too much. So big discounts, wipe out the inventory, clean slate, and then obviously Jeep has talked about how we have new product coming, like the 24 Wrangler, for example. So clean slate, this new product comes in, the new product is not more expensive than the old product. Obviously it's not going to necessarily have the same big discounts, but I think that that would just be a good palate cleanser for the market when it comes to Jeep. It would give them a really good reset, and it would, I think, set them up for success, right? If they have new product come in that is not more expensive. Let me know what you guys think Jeep should do, but again, this is just coming from a journalist. From my perspective, I think that would be the route to go to regain some market share and to, I guess, put a reset on the situation. Anyways, I'll see you.